satisfied, no pressure. I'm living my life. This is all I dream, 'cause I'm cooking with everything.
So we've heard that gumbo is your signature dish. So what is gumbo?
So gumbo, is some like to call it, is a Cajun or a Creole stew or a soup. It's definitely a southern Louisiana delicacy, and basically it derived from all the different cultures and traditions of the migrants that came to Louisiana centuries ago, anywhere from African, Spanish, French, German, Native American, even Italian. We had all those different groups of people. When they came, they brought their traditions with them and their methods of cooking, which influenced how we cook gumbo today. So I like to call it the melting pot of southern Louisiana cuisine.
How long is it taking you to perfect this gumbo?
Wow, so I've been making gumbo for over 12 years now, and I remember when I first got my first lesson on how to cook gumbo with my dad. It came out really thick, but it was seasoned really well. So by the second, third time, I had my own little system working and flowing. So it didn't take me that long to learn how to cook gumbo.
In your opinion, what makes your gumbo different from others?
What makes my gumbo different from others? Well, honestly, I'll have to say what makes my gumbo different probably has to be from the fact that it's homemade. I've gone into different restaurants and eaten gumbo, and it wasn't quite the same as how I cooked it. I think it's because I use fresh seasoning, and it comes from the heart. You know, when I'm cooking, especially during the holidays, I'm cooking for my family. I know what they like. I make sure it's seasoned really well. So I think that's what mostly makes it stand out, I guess you can say.
Who started this gumbo legacy?
Well, I'm gonna have to give the credit to my late father. He was the one that introduced it to me. He cooked gumbo all the time when we were kids, and when I got into my early 20s, I wanted to learn how to cook it, and he showed me how to make it. So I stood there and I learned, and I just picked up that tradition. And when he passed, I made it a point to continue his legacy. So I kind of added my own flavor to what was taught, and I've been doing it ever since then. My dad comes from a family of cooks as well. So all his brothers cook. It's actually on both sides of my family. So it runs in my family, it's in my blood. So that's kind of where, you know, that whole cooking gumbo and the legacy of it comes from.
What's one mistake you have made while making gumbo?
Oh, I've made plenty of mistakes with making gumbo. I guess I can say one of the things that I've learned was using filet in my gumbo. The first time I used the filet, when I cooked it on my own, I think that was the first or second time I did it on my own, I used too much filet. So it kind of overpowered the taste of the gumbo. So I've learned to really be careful about your seasoning. You want a balanced taste, and that's just something you'll probably pick up over time, trial and error. So, but that is definitely something I've learned about seasoning the gumbo.
Is there a specific meat you have to use in gumbo?
No, there's not a specific meat that you have to use, but traditionally in New Orleans, we use andouille sausage. We use D&D sausage. Those are different brands of pork sausage that we use in our gumbo, even red beans and other Louisiana cuisine that we eat. There's Patton brand hot sausage that we like to use. Those are meats that I always use in my gumbo. You don't have to use that, but it is traditionally the brands of meat that we use, so I always have it in my meat. But you can use any type of smoked sausage or hot sausage to your liking, and you can still make a good gumbo that way.
Okay, so are there any healthy alternatives for your gumbo?
Actually, I do have healthy alternatives. Actually, in my book, Cooking Made Practical, I offer different tips on how you can make gumbo healthier. One of the things you can do is with the flour. Traditionally, I've used all-purpose flour. You could also use whole wheat flour as a healthier option if you want a more nutrient-dense gumbo. You can also substitute the meats, okay? It's mostly pork and beef. You can substitute that with turkey sausage if you want, instead of using all of the pork sausage as a healthier option. So those are the few things that I offer and more in my book, Cooking Made Practical. Welcome back to the kitchen, guys, with me, Melraby. This is Cooking and Things with Melraby, baby, and I'm so excited to have you guys here with me today. Now, if you've been watching, you all know that I love to work out. I teach Zumba, I run, but I also love to eat good food, okay? So I like to keep that balance going. So what we're gonna do today is we are going to learn how to cook one of my favorite signature meals during the holiday, and that's seafood and sausage gumbo, okay? I have all of my ingredients here. We're gonna go over the steps on how to make this delicious gumbo, okay? Now the first thing you want to do, we're gonna get started with, is our shrimp stock, okay? When I do a seafood sausage gumbo, I use a shrimp stock as my base rather. If you do a chicken and sausage gumbo, you might want to use a chicken stock, okay? There's different ways you can make the stocks, but this is one of my ways that I like to do it. I like to boil the actual shells and the heads from my shrimp, using Zatarain's crawfish, shrimp, and crab ball bag, okay? So what we're gonna do, I've also seasoned my shrimp, okay? I marinated in the refrigerator. That's completely optional, but I like to season my shrimp ahead of time just to make sure it's well seasoned. And I had jumbo shrimp, so I just let it thaw out from the freezer, and this is what we're gonna use today. I'm also using smoked sausage with a mixture of andouille sausage. You can use whatever sausage you like. You can even add turkey sausage for a healthier option. We're gonna add some patent hot sausage. Now guys, this is a southern region hot sausage. Is not sold everywhere, okay? But you can use whatever hot sausage, whatever pork sausage that's hot that you like. That should work, but I always add this into my gumbo, okay? Love it. I have my chicken breast here, my boneless chicken breast. What I do with my chicken, some people like to add it raw. I like to sear it on both sides, season it, and then marinate it overnight just to make sure it's seasoned well, and then we'll continue to cook it when we add it to the pot. I have my fresh seasoning here. This is the Holy Trinity with my celery, my bell pepper, and onion. This is a signature fresh seasoning that we like to use in our southern Louisiana cuisine. I have some green onion and some fresh minced garlic. Now, here's one of my favorite things, and it is completely optional. This is fresh crab, okay? I'm gonna add crab to our gumbo. You don't have to add crab, but I'm like, what's seafood gumbo without crab, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get started on our stock. You don't wanna miss this. Okay guys, so the first thing is first, we're gonna start on our shrimp stock, okay? Now, the first thing you wanna do, whatever pot you're using, you wanna fill it up with water with the shells inside of it about 2 inches from the top, okay? Put it on some high heat here, and then you're gonna let it come to a boil. When it gets to that boiling point, that's when you're gonna add your crab boil bag, okay? And it kind of looks like this, okay? So we're kind of like halfway there. It's starting to bubble just a little bit, but when it gets to a boiling, roaring boil, I'm gonna add my bag in there, and I'm gonna let this boil for about 20 minutes, okay? And then when it's done, we're going to drain our stock. We're gonna add it back to the heat, and we'll get started on sauteing our hot sausage. You don't have to saute your hot sausage. You can add it to the pot. I just like to sear it a little bit, to cook it just a little bit before I add it. And then we're gonna get started on our roux. Okay guys, so as you can see, I have removed our stock pot from the stove, and I drained the shrimp stock. And here are all the shells that are left over. So I'm just gonna put this in a Ziploc bag, and I'm gonna place it into the freezer, and then just throw it out with the trash whenever possible. Now you don't want to keep this in the garbage can overnight because it will begin to smell. So I recommend placing your shells in a freezer bag if you're doing the shrimp stock like this, and then throwing it out with the trash, okay? So now that we have our shrimp shells removed, I'm going to place our pot of shrimp stock back on the stove, and I'm gonna add our raw crabs. Okay guys, so we have drained our stock and removed the shells. I placed the gumbo stock into a bigger pot here because we want to have room for the meats and all the extra things that we're gonna add. And like my dad always said, keep the pot boiling. So I've added the stock here, and the first thing I did was started adding my crabs, like I said earlier. So I'm gonna add my crabs. I've already added most of them. Now some places call these gumbo crabs, where they're already cut in half for you, or you can add whole crabs, and usually when they cook and they tenderize, they'll come apart. So I wouldn't worry about cutting them in half until they're softened if you want. So that's what I like to do. So now that we've added our crabs, we're gonna go ahead and let this simmer for a few minutes while we get started on our roux. Here we go. Okay guys, so we're gonna get started on our roux. This is a very important process, okay? This is gonna make the difference of you having a really delicious, balanced, tasty gumbo, the way that it should be. Now, in order to create a roux, you're gonna need your fat and flour, okay? There's two different types of ways you can do this. Some people like to use butter and flour. Some people like to use oil and flour. I use the oil and the flour, okay? Now, traditionally, using butter and flour is the Creole way, and using like vegetable oil and flour is the Cajun way, and this is the way that I was taught, the Cajun way, okay? But whatever floats your boat. So I have my oil here, and I'm using 2 cups of oil and 2 cups of flour, okay? You need to make sure it is a 1-to-1 ratio. Now this is a lot because we're doing a family size here. This is Thanksgiving, so we're doing a family size pot of gumbo, but you can always cut the amount in half depending on the size pot that you have and how much gumbo that you're gonna make, okay? So once this begins to sizzle, I know that it's hot, and I'm gonna add my flour, and we're going to make our roux, okay? Okay guys, so I have added our flour to the vegetable oil here. Now, you have to be very careful with the roux, okay? I have this on medium-high heat. You don't want to have it too high because you don't want it to burn, okay? You have to be very careful when you're making a roux. So as you can see, I'm stirring here, and I'm going to continue to stir, okay, until my roux thickens and it has sort of like a wet sand consistency, and it gets to a sort of like a caramel color. That's how I know it's ready. So I'm going to continue to stir, and you don't want to stop stirring. You want to keep stirring because if not, it could burn, okay? So we're going to go ahead and continue until we see it come to that wet sand like consistency, and it's like a caramel color. Okay guys, so as you can see, our roux here is starting to get that caramel wet sand consistency here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it from the heat, because roux will continue to cook once you remove it from the heat, and we're going to add the Holy Trinity just to kind of balance things out. And once it's fully combined, we're going to add it to our gumbo pot, okay? Remember, you don't want to burn your roux, so you have to continue to stir and don't take your eyes off of it, okay? But as you can see, I love this. It's that caramel color here, and it looks like wet sand. That's how you know that we're ready to add our Holy Trinity, and then we're going to add it to the gumbo pot, okay? So guys, I've added our Holy Trinity here, and as you can see, it's well combined, and it's a chocolate color. That's the color we wanted, no lighter, okay? Some people like to do a blonde roux where it's lighter, but that's just not the Cajun way, okay? We like to make sure it's at least milk chocolate color before we consider it a gumbo. But once you add it to the pot, if you feel like you want to add a little bit more color, you can add kitchen bouquet browning. That's what I like to do, just to add a little bit of it to get that dark color if you want. So we're gonna go ahead and stir this, and we're gonna add it to our gumbo pot. Here we go. Okay guys, so I have added my roux to the pot. Now what we're gonna do at this time, you wanna make sure you go ahead and stir really well to allow it to thicken, allow the gumbo to thicken just a little bit. It's gonna take some time. So once we've added the Holy Trinity that's already mixed in with the roux, we're gonna add the rest of our fresh seasoning. I've added my green onion, okay, my fresh minced garlic, and you're gonna add all the herbs you're gonna add at this time, my bay leaves and my Cajun seasoning, whatever floats your boat, whatever Cajun seasoning that you choose to use for your gumbo, and you're gonna mix this all together, and we're gonna let this simmer for another 30 minutes, okay? Now here's the kitchen bouquet browning that I suggested earlier. If you wanted a really dark color gumbo other than the milk chocolate color, you can add about a teaspoon of this once you've added it to the pot, and it'll darken for you, okay? Really good. Okay guys, so it has been about 20 minutes since we let our gumbo simmer after adding all of the seasoning, things like that. So you want to make sure you season to taste, okay? And that's what I did. It is delicious. It's very balanced. It's not too hot because I've added cayenne pepper also. And now at this point, we're going to add our chicken and our sausage, and we're going to go ahead and continue to let this simmer for another 20 minutes before we add the shrimp. Now I forgot to mention, guys, I add crawfish, fresh crawfish tails to my gumbo, so I'm gonna throw that in there as well. And then the last ingredient will be the shrimp. We want to add the shrimp last because shrimp cooks fast, okay? And then we're gonna add the filet and all of that good stuff, okay? So stay tuned. Okay guys, so it has been about 10 minutes since we've added our shrimp. So our gumbo is just about ready here. I've tasted it. It's creamy, well seasoned. So now we're gonna add our filet, okay? So I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of gumbo filet. Now, you want to be really careful about adding your filet. You don't want to overpower it, okay? Now the purpose of adding the filet is for it to be a thickening agent. Sorry, it is a thickening agent, but it also adds flavor, okay, to balance the gumbo. So we're gonna just stir this in here, and we're gonna let this simmer on a very low heat just for a few minutes, and we're gonna let it set before we spoon this into a bowl and dig in. Guys, this gumbo is banging. I've tasted it and it is so delicious, okay? So the last thing you want to do is add your filet, okay? So this is about 2 tablespoons that I've added, and we're done. We're gonna come back and taste it in a minute, okay? So guys, the moment of truth is here. I have spooned our gumbo here with some rice, and I'm going to dig in and taste it. I've already tasted it. It's delicious, but now that I have everything all together with the rice, I'm gonna go ahead and taste it, okay? I have a piece of hot sausage here. So I'm gonna take a little bite into this. Hands down. This is the best gumbo. I'm sorry. Now guys, I have a little bit of a surprise. Now in my family, I know this is kind of awkward, but that potato salad that I prepared last night, I'm gonna add some of this to my gumbo because I gotta have potato salad with my gumbo. Okay, so I'm gonna open this up. This is how we do. I just take a little bit of the potato salad. I do more than this, but I'm not gonna be a foodie right now. But so I'm gonna take some of my potato salad with this gumbo just to make sure. Oh my god, so good. So guys, if you want some of this gumbo, I highly recommend you get my book, Cooking Made Practical. I have a recipe in there for the gumbo. I promise you, you won't be disappointed, okay? So thank you so much for joining me today for our holiday segment. We're cooking gumbo today, Melraby Baby. See you next time on Taste on TV, Cooking and Things with Melraby Baby.